Hello and welcome to SNR-VC. For the first time in a very long while, we're Congo free, as you can see over there. No, they're actually standing over there, but they're in a different space. Right now it's 1:10, joining you with a fresh cup of green, because think about that environment. Am I right, people? Am I right? It's important to do. And today is the Saturday, which is this channel mean it's the Saturday news bloody recap. Am I right, people? It's the SNR. It's the SNR. We've been doing this for every Saturday, the entire year, this entire year. And today, ladies and gentlemen, based on your orientation of the project, of the videos, it will be either a very happy or a very sad day for you. Because today is going to be the last SNR. Because I fulfilled what I said I was going to do at the beginning of the year. I said I was going to make a SNR. I was going to try to do a Saturday news recap and trying to read the news and recap it on each and every Saturday throughout the year. Or at least until I reach that 365 video. And that's what we're about to do now. And I know, I'm with you. You're saying, hey, but Sim, mate, you're all wrong. Today isn't the Saturday. That's the last one. The last Saturday news recap will technically be the one next week. Both yes and no. Yes, you're absolutely right that the next Saturday to fall on a... rather, the next day of this project to fall on a Saturday will be the next Saturday. But that will also be the 365, the day number 365, the 365th upload. And I have something special scheduled from Monday to Sunday next week. Which is going to be a treat for you all. So that's why I'm choosing to making the video of this now. And this video is going to be all about the roundup of this project. I know I've mentioned it on a plethora of occasions, on plentiful of occasions, right? But I really like this series. And this is going to be the first video I do in the SNR project that is going to be completely off script, completely without any form of aid to me whatsoever. And it might shock you a bit to hear, I know, because I say that I always do raw footage, a raw format, and I absolutely do. I don't have a script in front of me. Sometimes I have like one or two keywords, but that's about it, is what I've said. However, at the SNRs, I tend to have the news articles, the titles of the news articles down on my phone. Is why I tend to look down on the SNRs to sort of gain a matter of perspective, remember what I've actually read about it, because just reading the title helps me in my brain connected to the numbers that was mentioned in that specific news article. But today we're not doing any of that, because we're not going to talk about any of the ongoing and raging trade wars of the US, China and Russia. We're not going to talk about the upcoming voting in government in Sweden. We're not going to talk about the continuation of the IKEA store in India and its success story. We're not going to be talking about Fortnite and the gaming scene that has exploded by it, and the reshaping of the social perception of what gaming really is and what streaming is. We're not going to be talking about anything that YouTube has done over the last couple of weeks, because this video simply just isn't going to be about that. Now, as I said, this is a roundup video. And as I said in a plethora of occasions, trying to come back to that, I really like the format as I've been developing it, because there has been an increase in interest from my side in reading the news over the last couple of weeks, or rather over the entire course of this year so far, because I've had an incentive to not only find news, but to find the news pieces that I deem to be the most noteworthy and dealing with the most interesting perspectives and bringing up the most interesting discussions over the week that might not necessarily be anything that anyone else on YouTube takes up, because then it already has that amount of coverage. Now, notorious detours from that is like E3, because I mentioned that quite quickly the week that came out, and the FIFA World Cup, because I think it took 2 or 3 SNRs mentioning that at least. And those events both have plenty of coverage, both of them. So they might not necessarily need it to be in there based on the criteria that I'm presenting right now, but I'm not mutually exclusive, right? But there has been such an increase in interest for me personally in what I deem to take in as my media and my social experience over the week, because generally before this it was all about Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It was all the rage. Took in my news sort of that way, took in my entertainment sort of that way. Lots of YouTube videos, lots of Twitch streams, and not that much on TV because I don't have a cable going into my extended PlayStation monitor that this is. It's not a TV, it's an extended PlayStation monitor, yeah? So I don't really have any channels to watch. So increasing and trying to expand the amount of channels that I watch in any given week with reading news sites has really been insightful for me. I don't know, many of you out there will be like, wow, you're a grown-ass person, you're a grown-ass man of 22 years of age who do not read the news. Yes and no. I was never a 22-year-old who didn't read the news, because that was this year, but I certainly were a 21-year-old who, up until that point in his everyday life, had never consistently interacted with news media in that way. And that's because plethora of reasons. One is interest, to say the least, right? Second of all, when I was about to get into it a few years back, this entire Wall Street Journal PewDiePie scandal happened, and I sort of read into that, and I thought, oh wow, The Guardian has done a similar thing with Jordan B. Peterson, and it seems to be this active war against sort of what is considered to be the new media, such as YouTube, and to some degrees probably you say Instagram and Facebook, and the old media, which is all these established newspapers like BBC and the Fox News network, The Guardian, the Aftonbladet in Swedish, right? There's all of these different medias that makes up the old media. So I was a bit split. I was a bit on the fence on which way I was about to go, because I thought, well, if I'm going to engage with news, then what side and which side do I want to engage with them on, if they're going to contradict each other? And I think I made the mature choice. Definitely the most time-consuming choice and the most inefficient choice, but the best choice overall, I think. And that was, I was looking at them both, especially since as of this year, which was that I am both looking at, you know, my natural consumption of entertainment, which is YouTube, and the new media side. But now I'm also making a conscious choice to try and interact with news from the old news site and from the old media, and that has brought him lots of new and interesting perspectives. For one, you can sort of rely on and estimate that a newspaper is going to be professionally written and edited and published, which you cannot always do on the new media, which is Facebook and YouTube, because there's a lot of singular or group editor and creators who are getting together and making these videos and getting them out there, and sometimes they're tainted with a lot of bias. I'm not saying that any given news article from the old media is not tainted by bias. They most certainly are, because I'm at least of the firm belief that everything that a human touches is subjective. We can't do anything objective. We can try. I mean, sure, to some degree you can probably do math really objective, but even there is some amount of subjectivism that can be implemented, and I believe that is the case for all news media, at least, because when it comes down to it, it's just a reporting and an opinion of rather reporting your opinion or someone else's opinion of a given event and showing off that to people. And then it's just a matter of, how do I want to sell this to people? As a good, happy story, as a sad story, as an angry story, or however you want to put it. So you can't get away from biases wherever you are, but I thought that my perception is that the old media is a bit more reliable in its language, in the way it uses its language, and especially its consistency over a long period of time. But it's been good to expand my knowledge, sort of to breach that barrier and extend the horizon. Because after all, when it comes down to it, I've just gotten more information from all of the different events that I'm interested in. Now, one can argue that I'm still limited to the areas that I deem to be very interesting, right? I mean, for instance, when it comes to the different news sites of the old news, of the old media, wow, this terminology is all getting confusing, but all the old media, the things that I'm sort of following is the same things that I'm following in the new media, which is sort of aerospace engineering, businesses of various degrees in various countries and various continents, what is happening all over the world. Really interested in that. Entrepreneurship, success stories, failure stories, more often than not, are more interesting than the success stories, even though I don't think that I've taken up a failure story necessarily on the SNR, because that doesn't tend to shed the brightest light on society, now does it? And I would like to encourage you all out there to actually engage with a bit of a risk, because after all, you can't fulfill all of you unless you take a risk, right? You got to take a risk in order to see who you are, and that is why I think that the failure stories are sometimes, or rather more times than not, more interesting to look at than the success stories, because in the success stories a lot of things could have happened where they overlooked some things that could have been better, but in a failure story you meticulously, successfully, no, I'm saying successfully, I meant continuously, right, go through in a sequential matter all of the things that went wrong and all of the things in order to establish what was it that actually went wrong. And in that sense, I believe that you get more insight. So I think that the failure stories are more interesting. Sort of derailed, branched out, something that I've also been doing in lots of the SNRs. I've been starting talking about something, right, sort of a news story. Let's just say aerospace engineering going to Mars, right? It was a team from the Great Britain, I believe, if I can say correctly on top of my head, who went off to, or was it NASA? Anyway, doesn't really matter right now. The point I wanted to get across was that the news piece was all about them trying to get to Mars, and I was all about, that's awesome! And then I went into my own personal background about that I really enjoy that sort of stuff, which was sort of branching out. So branching out is not something that is unfamiliar to this little project and this little video series that we have created. One of the only video project series at the moment, at this point in time, that actually has its own designated playlist. I should probably make one for all of the projects, but in hindsight that's easy to say. But yeah, so I've expanded my horizons, which is not a small thing to add. I mean, expanding your own horizons is one of the things you should try to do your entire life. And me having done that now with both the old and the new media, and finding some new things that I deem to be very interesting, it has really helped me in a lot of ways, because when I interacted in school, when I was talking to other people, there is lots of these things that I just drag upon, and I'm like, I've read about this might be a really interesting conversation starter in this specific situation. Also, when I've been at work and we needed to fix a specific problem, I would be like, what, I've read about this exact thing, or a very similar task problem, a task-specific problem. Maybe if we try to implement that, what do you think would happen? And then it would have, it led to both success and failure, but you gotta try, you gotta live, trial and error and all of that in order to be better. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but sometimes it works. So I think that is something that I wouldn't have been able to contribute if I hadn't done this. So I'm truly happy that I have exposed myself to the old news media as well as the new, because yet again, lots of perspectives that we're getting from there. I've also increased the amount of articles and the amount of pages and characters that I read in any given week. And believe me, you probably think that you don't read that much, but you read a lot if you read a lot on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. After all, Twitter is basically just a wall of text that you go through. It's just like reading a book, really, but a continuously printed book that all of your friends and the people that you follow help to generate in real time. Combining all of that effort, reading all of those news pieces, news media, projections, and keeping up to date with all of your friends and your network is doing, I've also, as I've said, continuously and a lot this video, starting to amount it up to a real horror story, this, about me just telling you about how much I've actually read, and how much I've actually interacting with the old media, has really piled on the amount of things that I've read, which is a good thing, right? I mean, I'm really happy about everything that I'm reading right now. It's just that one of my future projects that I'm thinking about implementing, that you will hear about on next Sunday most likely, is going to involve a lot of reading, and even more reading. And did I mention some reading? It's going to be a big part of it. So it was probably good that I unconsciously, or subconsciously I'd say, started working on my reading skill and getting that up to speed more than I already did in school, in order to sort of form myself to move into this next project and at least maintain my reading skills and the reading speed and pace over the summer break, which has been full of work. Speaking about work, I've been so happy that I've been able to put this little project together even though I've had work, because this is the only video really. I mean, I'm trying to my best of my ability and I've succeeded like to 99% of putting out videos on the days when I'm recording it. Like, I'm recording it on the day it's going to get out. But these SNR videos is the only one that I can't really stray away from, because I've always had this in the back of my mind, like, okay, if I'm getting too stressed, if it's getting too weird, if it's getting too whacked, I probably need to, you know, just pre-record a couple of videos so that I have some leeway, which I did, and then I got sick. It's typical, isn't it? When your body starts to sort of relax and you're just like, I'm sick, why? But the SNR is the only video that I can't really record anything before it goes out, because it's about the stories of that week, so it doesn't really work. Even though the following of this project is, let's just be honest, right? It's scarce. It's not the millions and billions of views, but I still think that for me personally, I like to keep the authentic experience and try to, just for myself, try to work with this experiment as authentically and originally as I possibly can. Which means that the SNRs on the Saturday is a no, don't touch, don't move, don't pre-record session. Which is awesome, because it adds an additional layer of deadlines to the amount of deadlines I have to face each and every single day, which was really exhausting in the beginning, but it sort of becomes second nature and a habit after a while. It's just that amount of, you know, you gotta get over it. And I must say, now we're moving close to the end of the video, but I would just like to say that in the beginning it was really hard getting into the old new media. Especially since I was accustomed to the new media and hadn't really been reading newspapers and this sort of a lot up until that point, till I was, you know, basically 22 this year. It was hard to make the change, really, because as I said, you read a lot. I've read like easily 400 to 500 articles this year. I've just been going through all of the new things that they put out, and when they're done I get to a new thing, because you can do it on the go, because it's in your phone. You can do it in the bathroom, you can do it on a break or whatever. When it slows down at work, you can be like, oh, I remember I read something interesting, maybe I can continue with this. And then you actually discuss these things with other people, because it becomes a big part of your life. So yeah, it was a hard thing to do in the beginning, especially the first 10, 20, 50 articles, because it was all like, I really had to do this, you know, you're quitting halfway through and you just feel like an awful piece of garbage, and that sort of motivated me, at least, because that mindset was like, oh, I'm not really doing it properly, and that motivated me to do it properly. And once I got into it, it was just, you know, it was like on rails, it just went as of its own. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that keep up with the news, keep an open mind. It's good for everybody, it's good for yourself. You expand your horizon, you increase the amounts of perspectives that you have. Read news, be critical towards a lot of news, because I've certainly been over the last couple of months. And try to combine a news story with another news story that is reporting about a similar thing, if not the exact same thing. And try to the best of your ability to find, and this is a reason for why I've read so goddamn many articles, try to find an article that contradicts what is said in the first article. If one article says that, hey, Tesla's good, try to find one that says Tesla is bad. If one says that, you know, boxers are good, try to find one that says boxes are bad, or circles are better than boxes, or whatever you can say, right? Because you want that extra perspective. That's the entire point, in order to justify, is what I read really true, or is it not true? Especially in the dying age of fake news everywhere. That's probably what I've learned over the course. And don't give up. It's so important, don't give up. I know many people who start to try and read books and they give up halfway through or a quarter into the book. It's the same thing here. Don't give up. It's going to be a lot of reading. It's going to be a lot of your time invested. But in the end, I would argue, because I'm out on the other side now, once I'm into it, on the rails, it's a really pleasant experience, and it's really good. I mean, I'm gaining more than I'm losing. I'm gaining more knowledge, and I'm losing in the time I invest putting into reading all of it. So I think it's really interesting. I think it's really important. I wish more people would do it. My next goal is probably to look in more to politics, because I realized last week when I was talking about it that I don't know crap about politics in my own nation. It's horrifying in a way. Anyway, good to have a goal, right? That's everything from me, mates. This is going to be the last SNR of the year. probably. So it's been a really fun project. Thank you for all of you who have been watching and supporting, and have a nice time, mate. See you.